Hello and you're welcome to the Big Tech Show with me, Adrian Weckler. Now, my guest today is one of relatively few women who runs a Nasdaq-listed company and previously been described as one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world. Jen Hyman co-founded Rent the Runway in 2009 and has seen it grow in the US to millions of users, including lots of monthly subscribers. Rent the Runway also has a very significant engineering base in Galway that helps keep everything moving. Jen, you're so welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a few years.
It has been a few years, but we're delighted to have you back. I'm going to ask you about all things Rent the Runway in a moment, how it's going, how you see the future. Just wanted to ask you something briefly first, though. Get your sense on a related issue, one you've spoken a lot about before, and that's the issue of diversity, because it seems we used to talk mainly about this as a strength, the strength of diversity. And now I'm hearing and seeing quite a few Silicon Valley people kind of disparaging it, kind of turning it into a culture war issue, kind of turning it into a dirty word, the term DEI. What's your sense about all this? Do you feel or do you worry that diversity in DEI is under attack at the moment?
Well, I think that it is under attack for the folks in the companies who took it up as a trend in 2020. I think that if you were just responding to kind of racial unrest in the United States in particular, and you needed to do something for PR purposes at that time, then it's very easy to not have that be like a deep-seated value. And when the wind shifts, you will shift along with it. That being said, it's very different for Rent the Runway because diversity has always been a core to how we built our team. And I think it starts at building a skill set that is complementary. And so I, as a leader, always had the humility that I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had to understand what strengths I was going to bring to the table and therefore what strengths I needed to hire around me. And typically when you're hiring around you, you're not just hiring for different strengths, but you're hiring for very different personality types. So understanding what's my personality, what are my strengths, and then how do I find people who I can get along with and have fundamentally the same values, the same core values, but are going to exhibit their strengths and their personalities very different. And from the onset of Rent the Runway, that meant that we had a diverse team in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity and background, in terms of all the things, sexual preference, etc. And that, I think, has led to us, being able to disrupt an industry.
Yeah, it's just from this side of the Atlantic, we're hearing and seeing things. I mean, it's almost become an election cycle issue. We hear one party talking about the leader of another party as a DEI hire, things like that. And it feels like it's getting ugly.
Well, it has always been ugly as it relates to politics. And when you have a woman of color who's on the precipice of breaking, the highest glass ceiling that there ever was, I think that that's when, folks who are really terrified by that notion are going to come out of the woodwork and attack her qualifications. We would never attack the qualifications of a man had he been the vice president. I mean, how else could a woman be more qualified for the presidency had she not been a vice president? So I just think that the political environment has certainly seeped into business culture. And I think that every single leader has to determine how they want politics to be a part of their ongoing operation or not. So one of the things that became extremely important to me as the world became crazier and crazier over the last few years post-COVID, and I say that as my own opinion on the world, I just recognized that here we are we're in the fashion industry. We're trying to disrupt the way that women get dressed. It and we're a relatively small business in the scheme of things. This year we are going to do over $300 million in sales and $5 to $6 billion in GMV, which is significant for the fashion industry, but we're not a Fortune 500 company by any stretch of the imagination. So when all of these issues kept on coming up, it seemed odd that there was an expectation that I would comment on the war in the Ukraine or discrimination against Asian Americans that was happening several years ago, and on and on. And I basically said to my organization, this company was rooted in a mission of empowering women. So if there are political issues that have to do with women, that feels very natural for Rent the Runway to get involved in. And that's why I've been an advocate for paid family leave. It's why I've been an advocate for reproductive rights, anything that enable women to live the life that they want to live. But it doesn't seem like Rent the Runway should be making a comment on anything that doesn't have to do with our mission. And there are going to be employees who have very different points of view on whatever the topic at hand is. And I don't think my opinion matters. I don't think that just because I run Rent the Runway that my opinion on the war in the Ukraine is consequential at all. And so there is an element of business leaders need to understand what is important and what is not important for them to speak out about.
Yeah, the context in which I'm raising this issue is your opinion might be influential and interesting and persuasive as a corporate culture issue because you do run a company, and this is an issue that I know that you and many others feel quite strongly about.
I definitely think that as it relates to women, it is still few and far between that women are rising up to CEO positions, that women are taking companies public, that women remain in those seats once those companies are public. And that is something I'd love to see change, because I do think that women, especially in consumer-facing businesses, women are 85% of the customer base. They're influencing 85% of the consumer-oriented decision-making in their households. And certainly there is a huge pipeline of incredible female talent. 60% of all graduate school attendees in the United States are women now. So you've got a lot of really smart women in the workforce. And I think that we have to look at the data at how low female participation is at the most senior ranks of business and understand that this isn't just about women opting out. This is about, structural barriers that exist that we need to acknowledge so that we can break through.
I'd love to spend more time on this particular topic. I do want to talk about Rent the Runway, though, as well. And many of our listeners and viewers will have heard of Rent the Runway, but it's really primarily a North American operation. So there's a lot going on with the company at the moment. Could you just first briefly give us the basic explanation of what Rent the Runway does?
So Rent the Runway offers women the opportunity to rent designer clothes as opposed to buying them. And we could rent clothes both a la carte for special occasions, as well as via a subscription, where fundamentally people can receive items from our kind of unlimited closet and wear those items on rotation. And it really is a substitute for going out and buying lots of items that you're only going to wear once or twice and then throw away. So Rent the Runway offers women the variety and self-expression that fast fashion does, but does it in a more sustainable way for the environment and for their wallets. So this was a very disruptive concept when we launched in 2009. because the idea of wearing clothing that other women had worn before, which we now call secondhand, which is now prolific all over the world, was very nascent. And it was considered by many to be unhygienic and down market and pretty gross. So we had to build a brand that really flipped that on its head and turned renting into something that was really cool and really smart and a high end aspirational behavior.
Yeah, and I think is it $99 you get 2 deliveries of a few items, and you get to keep them for 4, 5, 6 days. It's something like that.
Well, no, the main subscription product costs around $140 a month, and you get 10 items a month
10 items a month.
across 2 shipments that you can use to get dressed. And what is really interesting about it is it's evolved from a business that has catered to women around more special moments in their life to now it's really about every day. And people are using their subscriptions to get dressed for work, to get dressed for, their casual everyday life alongside special occasions. And I believe that in the United States now, with millions of women participating in the rental economy, we've moved really from the early adoption kind of part of the curve into more of the mainstream adoption part of the curve. And that's why what is fascinating is I currently have never been more bullish on my company as I am today, because the first 15 years we had to create a market. Now that market exists, the customer feels like it's part of their normal consideration set. Not all customers yet. There's still room to grow the consideration set, but it's definitely more of a mainstream behavior. And now it's our opportunity to kind of get those customers on the platform.
I remember a couple of years ago, you and I had a great conversation on a stage in Galway, and we went through an awful lot of things over about an hour and a half. And what struck me, and I still remember, was how bullish you were and how strong on the idea of the online clothes shopping. And I guess maybe the last few years, though, have shown, have they not, that old habits are sometimes hard to shift, that a lot of people still prefer physical shopping.
I don't think that's what the last few years have shown us. I think what the last few years have shown us is that human beings need to socialize and they need to leave their homes and have experiences. And experiences are more important than ever before. By the way, Rent the Runway is an experience. You're returning the clothes afterwards. This is a service-oriented business. But let's look at how retail has shifted over the last, let's say, even 5 years since we sat down on that stage together. Today, occupancy rates, at least in the United States, are extremely high in retail locations that offer more than just the purchasing behavior. So retail has moved more, especially at the high end, has moved more into lifestyle. So you go into a retail, let's say, shopping center, and not only are there stores where you can buy clothes or buy handbags or jewelry, but there's awesome fitness. There's awesome, food options. There's high-end kind of medical in some locations. There's beauty-related services. There's places that you can take your kids and play. Like, we never, with the exception of teenagers who always viewed the mall as being a place to socialize, I think that this concept of retail being a place to have experiences and socialize has never been more accepted and pervasive than this post-COVID world. And we've seen that real estate owners really took the opportunity during COVID to rethink and refashion their spaces away from just, only traditional retail, only traditional kind of stores, to I think, more multi-purpose experiential shopping. And I think that's what's become extremely successful. So that's never going to go away,
Mm.
that we want to have those experiences.
Yeah. And did you open a store, a physical store in New York?
So we reopened our New York store, and it was a big mistake that we kept it closed for as long as we did. I think that the store does so much to build the brand. Rent the Runway, again, is a company that is about a service that we're providing to a woman, where the what you're buying into is a feeling of empowerment and self-confidence. And part of how we give that to you is the trust that our product needs to imbue, that no matter what, we will ensure that you have an amazing experience. Because there is a lot of risk with buying or renting clothing online. That risk is about fundamentally the fit and whether you think as the customer that clothing will look good on you. So having a store allows us to put our service values kind of on display. It allows people to understand, we're here for you. We're going to help you try on multiple items. We're going to help you build a profile. We're going to help you figure out what fits you in all various brands. And this is going to be a safety net for you, that if you happen to be a consumer in New York and you ever receive an order that isn't up to snuff, that you don't love, we can courier you more items from the store. We will always make it right.
Mm.
So that's kind of like the baseline element of what a store does. Now, the stores for us as well are branding moments, in like, we are having various events and parties at the store a lot. We are inviting our customers into the store to experience the magic of our brand. And we're going to have a massive launch around how these stores are different and provide a magical experience that you can't capture online come later in the fall.
One of the things that is intriguing to me about the online experience with Rent the Runway is some of the experimentation that I was looking at, like the idea that I could do a search for something like a pink sparkly Barbie dress, and it might come back, to me with something suitable, or something like an outfit for a holiday in Tuscany, and I might do the same. To what extent is AI informing any of the tech that you're using?
Yeah, so we built out an AI search functionality that has enabled us to showcase to our customers that they can come to Rent the Runway for the long tail. So our value proposition is this idea of an unlimited closet. No matter how you want to get dressed, the millions of items that we have can kind of make that happen for you. And we want people to feel confident that whether they're going to a Taylor Swift concert and they want to dress as part of the Lover era, or whether they're going to work and they have a more conservative business meeting, or whether they're going to their best friend's wedding in Tuscany, that there's always going to be options for them. So giving them ways to kind of explore and discover has been part of what we've been focused on over the last few years. And I think that the merchandising and search capabilities on our site have really evolved in very positive ways.
Mm. And in terms of the company itself, it's been a challenging enough time over the last couple of years for Rent the Runway. In terms of returning to growth, you mentioned at the outset you were expecting a certain number by the end of the year in terms of sales. What do you think happened? Was it a COVID-related thing mainly? And how do you see a path back to that kind of growth?
Well, I think that this is going to be a really exciting year for Rent the Runway. We are finally going to be a free cash flow break-even business, so we can truly control our destiny. We've been focused a huge amount since COVID on, getting to free cash flow profitability. And that means that we have looked at every aspect of our business to figure out how we should be spending our dollars. We've tripled our margins since pre-COVID. We have really optimized our fulfillment expenses. So you've seen that fulfillment expense has gone down significantly. We've completely changed our inventory model from being one where we used to buy all that inventory upfront from our partners to one now that it's a capital light model where we ingest the inventory for free and then revenue share with our brands based on the performance of the unit. So we've done a lot of work under the surface, including to upgrading our entire technology stack, where we felt like entering 2024, not only is it going to be a hallmark year for the company financially, but we could put every single human resource that we have in this business against reigniting growth. And we already have seen that with, Q4 of last year, that was a quarter where we really stabilized the growth year over year. We started to see very small growth in Q1. We're announcing Q2 in September, but we feel very, very confident that we have turned the growth curve around and that this is going to be about really taking advantage of this market now that is receptive to Rent the Runway. There's very high brand awareness and brand love for Rent the Runway, and we hadn't been doing a lot over the last few years to get back out into the world. So even our marketing budgets over the last few years were primarily spent on very bottom of the funnel ads on Facebook or Google. We have brought in a new chief marketing officer. We're completely diversifying the channels through which we market. We are understanding that the brand health is really reliant on us going back to all of the emotional work that we used to do, building ambassador networks, going around the country and having events, meeting our customers, having college tours, doing those things that when you isolate them, they don't feel as scalable as buying an ad on Google. But I've seen, based on my experience, that a lot of those unscalable things, when aggregated together, actually amount to much more organic growth and virality for a brand like Rent the Runway than these singular kind of bottom of the funnel tactics.
Yeah, they're more powerful, more bespoke. And you mentioned the world there, but you did also mention the country. I mean, Rent the Runway is a North American enterprise. The last time we spoke, I asked, what about Europe? What about Ireland? You were kind of like, maybe in the future. Is that the way you're still thinking?
I think that everything is dependent on cash flow. The more cash flow that we produce, the more options we're going to have and the quicker we can grow the business. So that's why at this point, our margin structure is really healthy. Every additional dollar that we bring in is just a dollar that is going, straight to producing, first free cash flow break even and then cash flow that we can use to reinvest in our growth. So you'll see us do a tremendous amount over the next year or two in, for instance, reigniting our special event rental business, which we think should be a mass market business. Even for those that don't have a subscription and don't want to kind of change the way they get dressed every single day, there are certainly special events every year that you're invited to that that you don't want to buy a dress you're only going to wear once. So we're going to reignite that. We are spending an enormous amount of energy in completely changing the customer experience in your first 90 days of being a subscriber and kind of flipping that experience on its head. Right now, a lot of people join, and if their idea of a subscription is grounded in how they think about online e-commerce. And in online e-commerce, if you receive an order from a retailer and that order doesn't fit you, you feel like that was a failed experience. Whereas with Rent the Runway, you're entering a new way of getting dressed. The only reason why you're going to sign up for a subscription is because you want to experience new brands and new colors and new trends that you've never worn before. We allow you to express yourself however you want, whenever you want. So there's a discovery and learning and fun to this at the very beginning, that we need to reteach the customer, hey, if you receive this, powder blue vest and like you don't love it, that's cool. We've now learned something about you and learned something about your style, and that'll help inform all of your future orders going forward. So we're really looking to invest a lot of resources into making those first 90 days magical and addictive.
Jen, I feel like completely throwing out my wardrobe and going for something a lot more interesting talking to you. I'm going to go home tonight and look at it and go, this is not up to speed. I need some more colour in my life. Just finally, Galway. You've been in Galway now, I think, 5 years.
Yes, it's our 5-year anniversary in Galway.
You established a base there, primarily engineering. It's like you're a North American business.
It was primarily in engineering initially, but now we actually have team members in Galway who are doing data science, doing product, doing accounting on our finance team, on our HR team. We've really, it was one of the smartest decisions that we've made as a company. And I really owe it to my former CTO, who was the one who opened that office and really had an understanding and just a gut feeling. Like, there's a lot of tech talent all over the world. We could have opened an office that would have been a cost advantage for RTR in many different locations. And we were debating several different locations in Europe at the time. And my CTO spent a lot of time in Galway, and he was like, I just have a gut feeling on this place. The culture of the people that I am meeting is a Rent the Runway sort of employee, is someone who thinks like a founder, acts like a founder, is scrappy, is hardworking. And that has proven to be really true. It's proven that, this is not just some secondary office for us. We've invested a lot into growing our employee base in Galway. I see us being there for the long haul. And, they're some of my favorite team members that we have. And we started off talking about diversity and that everyone is different, and that's true. But I do think that the Irish that I have encountered in our office it is a spectacular culture. Like, I don't want to be biased against an entire culture in a positive way or a negative way, but
you can be as biased as you want in favor of the Irish.
I'm a little biased positively towards Irish culture and Ireland after having this experience. It is a very different type of mentality than I've experienced in the US. And I love it.
Well, on that extremely positive note, Jen Hyman, co-founder, CEO of Rent the Runway, thank you again so much for joining the Big Tech Show today. JJ Clark produced this episode. We had Gav Hennessy on sound, and I'm Adrian Weckler. You've been watching or listening to the Big Tech Show, and we'll talk to you soon.